Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 17 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, I can't even think what to say this week
As
for my
always.
original intro for Mr. John, as always, Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
Oh, you fluffed it. That's great. That's brilliant.
Well, I didn't fluff it, I just didn't have anything to say.
I could see you glazing over.
It's okay, we can do a retake. It's not, oh, wait, no.
No, we're not.
No retakes. No retakes.
No, we're professionals here. No, I'm good. Am I nervous? Do I look nervous? No, we're good. Because I did some dry runs and stuff for my presentation at the summit on Wednesday, and I got my timings spot on. But the cat was deeply unimpressed. So,
Did you remain dry, or was there some moistness creeping in due to the nerves?
I was talking to my cat, so...
Okay, well, we better leave that there then. Although I did point out to John that it's probably a great dry run because the reaction he got from his cat may be very similar to the reaction he's going to get from the audience at the summit.
Non-existent.
Yeah. I shan't mention the other comment that I made. Anyway, on that note, let's introduce our guest for this week. We are joined by a very special guest, Damien Jones, fellow AWS community builder and fellow AWS user group leader. How are you doing today, Damien?
Yeah, I'm really well. It's very hot today, isn't it? It's surprisingly hot for the end of April, especially in Manchester. So, just let that sit for a second.
So it's
how hot is
10 degrees in
yeah. How hot is it in Manchester?
Yeah. It's into double digits. Let's have a look. It is current. Wow. Okay, it's 20 degrees. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there we go. Well, we've got a colleague in Nottingham who said it was 23, and I did see 22 out on the South Downs earlier when I went out for a lunchtime motorbike ride.
That's in Celsius. I don't know what that is in freedom units.
No, it's it's lots. 70, 80 odd, something like that. But unseasonably warm. But Damien, tell us a little bit about what you do for a living, what you do for the AWS community.
Yeah, so I'm an AWS consultant for Steamhouse. We're an advanced consultancy partner in Manchester. So I'm very much at the customer-facing end of the spectrum. So we'll understand what the customer's business needs are, translate that to technical requirements. And then generally, if you know what you want, brilliant, hands on keyboard, let's get started. If you don't, it'd be more along the lines of do some research, find out what your options are, get together feedback, and then we can progress forwards. We can do whatever needs to be done. I've got a background in data, so I've been a DBA in my time, a data engineer, data ops engineer, all that kind of stuff. And this year I became a community builder in the data category. Also this year I started AWS User Group Lancashire. That's with Cat. I had a company called Northern Reach. So we literally did our first event in Burnley in January. So the idea is Lancashire's got a lot of great tech talent, but there's not really before Northern Reach been kind of an instigator, if you will, an igniter to kind of get people together and shine a light on the region. So Northern Reach are already doing a lot of that kind of stuff. I floated the idea of a user group and they basically leapt on me. We did the first event at Burnley because I'm from Burnley. I studied at Burnley College. We did the first event there. So that's kind of the main thing for me, really. Get people, get the right people in the right rooms talking, and then hopefully it can blossom. If I can help that kind of thing happening, then that's the definition of an AWS user group, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think you broke from the networking tradition of free beer and pizza and went with something a bit more northern. Is that right?
So we fed Mateus a pie that he seems to have blown his mind.
It's the Brazilian man of
pie. At the event, we had booze, but we had kofta kebabs as well because Burnley College have a very good catering department. So they kind of said, what do you want? Because here's what we can do. And I was fully ready to put the Domino's order in. And we said, well, no, yeah. And they went down a treat. They were delicious. And we've had, besides the food, we've had great support from the college. We've had support from the University of Lancaster as well. The next event's going to be in Chorley. And we've got a talk on EDA, we've got a talk on Bedrock. So that went live last week. If you go on Meetup, it's AWS User Group Lancashire, and you can join the group, see if you like the look of the event. Come on down, I'd love to meet you.
Or up from us.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Come up from Brighton, you know.
Well, I am actually a Lancaster University alumni, and I got invited to a Lancaster University alumni networking event in Brighton, of all places, which is pretty much where I live. Recently, it was quite an interesting event. I'm not sure what the driving force behind it was really, but and I wasn't sure what to expect. But I arrived in a function room in a pub and started the evening chatting to people who graduated before I was born, and then finished the evening chatting to people who were not born when I graduated. So it was a very interesting range of people getting together in Brighton from Lancaster University. The only thing we had in common. So there we go.
It sounds like you've got a real spectrum going.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm definitely on the spectrum, yeah.
And then just other than that, I'm a blogger at Amazon Web Shark. Started in 2021. International speaker, which still blows my mind. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. So, you know, that was interesting. And yeah, I don't know.
Where have you spoken internationally then?
So last year was AWS Community Day in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly thought they'd got me mixed up with someone else. It just said, "Yeah, we'd love your talk." What? You know? At that point, there was none of this. It was just like me. It was just like, "Yeah, hiya." And it was brilliant. It was. Let's say it was like probably the third or fourth time that I'd ever done some speaking. They were really supportive. It was a great venue, great team. I just loved it.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on that. And yeah, here's to many more. Anyway, on that note, let's move on to talk about AWS news. As regular listeners to the podcast will know, once a week I curate a list of AWS news, which I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John and I pick a selection of the articles that we'd like to talk about with our guests. So we do, of course, have such a selection of articles, and lots about money this week, at least the first couple anyway. So the first article this week is the announcement that AWS now allows customers in Europe to pay for their usage in advance. So rather than keeping your money in your bank account, you can give it to AWS and they can have it in their bank account and pay your invoices with it. So, John, what are your thoughts on this? Any sort of good use cases for this? Think where people might want to pay for their AWS usage in advance?
If your accounts department is a bit backwards, I think. Like, I don't get this personally. I don't get this. I understand the concept, right? Because this is something that we've seen. I assume it's available in America. I haven't looked. But this is the sort of thing that you've seen on the retail side of things, right? You can buy gift cards. Gift cards are a thing. You can prepay your account balance either with these gift cards, because that's how you kind of redeem an Amazon voucher, right? Is you prepay your account balance. Or you can do that directly with money. If you don't like having your own money, you can give it to Jeff, I suppose. But yeah, that's the thing that you know, lots of providers do this in terms of the retail side of things. Not really familiar with cloud providers doing it, and honestly, I'm not quite sure what the use case is, because the majority of business transactions that I've ever been involved in have been on net terms, so net 30, net 60, net 90, where you pay a long time after you've actually had the thing. And this is an odd one in terms of things that I can think it would be useful for. Like I say, slightly backward accounts departments where you have, well, our budget for the cloud bill for the year is going to be X, so let's just pay that now because we've got the cash. Buff, done. But that doesn't actually guarantee that that's all you're going to pay. That just means that's what you've put ahead of time. And it's almost the antithesis to the cloud spend model, in that the whole point of the cloud, from my view, was it moved your spend from CapEx to OpEx. You know, there's lots of other benefits as well, but from the accounts thing, it moved your spend from capital expenditures to operational expenditure. So you didn't have these big 3-year hardware refresh cycles and all that jazz. But if you still want to do that, I suppose you can now.
Public sector, maybe? The end of year, we've got this money, we must spend
some
it
money
or we lose
somewhere
it.
or we won't get it. Yeah,
give it to AWS. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Damien? You seeing any use cases for this where customers might want to pay AWS in advance?
So, I mean, now John's just described backwards accountancy teams. I'm not going to look at. So, at my old place, it wasn't so much that they were backwards. It's we did a lot of work with the finance team in terms of data, moving things back and forth, making sure things were in the right place at the right time. And it highlighted, and this might just be this one place that I worked at, but I get the impression it's other places as well. There's not a lot of automation in the financial sector. So there's some things that are done spectacularly well. We're all technologists. If we find something that we want to do and it's not something that we can solve quickly, we write a script, we do something quick, we automate that pain away. But in finances, it's not that simple. You either get someone that does it and does it very well and then leaves and no one knows how it works anymore. Perish the thought that would ever happen. Or you end up with something that's half built, it does the job half well, it's stitched together, or it just doesn't get automated and it becomes someone's full-time job. So when I had to flick through it, and one of the key points it raises is that it automates it away. So yes, it's, why would we want money when we can put it in AWS? And to be fair, in the documentation, I didn't see anything about taking the money back out. So you would better be confident about what you are putting in. But you then potentially free up a finance resource. It could be a person at that particular point in time. It could be like at my old place again, we had like the last day of the month, you had a lot of stuff going on, because no matter how much preparation you could do, there was always going to be the end of month processes. And this is one less thing to do. And it also says in the documentation, it helps to maintain and improve standing. So presumably this is impacting a payer's representation with AWS. If they miss a bill through no fault of their own, if someone's off, they forget to do it, whatever, and then AWS say, well, where's our money? This keeps happening. You're starting to affect reputations. You're starting to have a negative impact on your business relationship with AWS. So you're right, John. I don't see a lot of use for it. I haven't personally seen something that I would say you should totally do this, but I can see why it exists, because if it keeps happening, and you could basically say to AWS, here's the money, you deal with it. It's one less thing for your finance team to go, have we paid the AWS bill?
The one thing that does come to mind, actually, thinking about it, is it's almost like, and I don't know what it's like for people in other territories. Sorry, I'm going to use a very UK specific example here. It's like paying your electric bill by direct debit, because you don't use so much in the summer and use a lot more in the winter, right? And the idea is you pay £100 a month, whatever, nice round number, all year, and you use a bit more than that in the winter and a bit less than that in the summer, and it just kind of all evens out, and you just sort of putting money into a pot. And the idea is, come about this time of year, actually, your pot should be pretty low. It should be around zero or near zero around this time of year. Yeah. Because you don't want to be giving your energy company more money than you really need to. And whilst they do actually have a mechanism for getting the money back, it's the same concept. You want to hang on to your own money. For AWS bills, for a lot of businesses, they're reasonably steady state in my experience. They're pretty consistent month on month in terms of how much they're going to spend. But that's not the case for everybody. If you have a seasonal business where you're in a number of sectors, think education, retail, where they kind of do things around peak periods. So retail being Christmas, Black Friday sales, education being around, for certain people, it's around things like clearing times, or it's around exam times, or they have really quiet periods where they don't spend a lot in summer holidays, for instance, those kinds of things. What this would presumably allow you to do is set your spend at a reasonably consistent level, regardless of kind of how much that spike is going to cost, or you can save a bit of money in the downturn period. Thinking particularly things like Black Friday, where you go 4, 5, 10x your regular usage just to cope with that, but you put your automated payment at 10% higher than it needs to be for the rest of the year, and then you're just kind of paying the same amount all the time. And that presumably as well makes finance people a lot happy, because they don't have this weird spike in December that you have to explain every year.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. If you are an AWS customer in Europe and you've got money burning a hole in your bank account, you can now give it to AWS and they can look after it for you. Of course, you've always been able to pay for some services in advance with reservations and compute savings plans, etc. Doesn't seem to be any discount benefit offered for this particular payment in advance. This is just AWS holding your money and deducting your bills from the balance. But there we go. And yes, John, it is available in the US as well as Europe. Although I think when I click through to the documentation, I think it's only sort of in preview at the moment in Europe. So I don't think it's generally
it's the sort of thing that I would expect to have come to the US first and then to Europe and then so on, because of how AWS does their kind of territory billing.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, let's move along to our second article this week, which is also about money, but this one firmly in the data sphere. So Damien's chosen specialized subject. This is an announcement that serverless reservations for Amazon Redshift now have a new discounted pricing option. So Damien, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, it was, for starters, I believe you touched on it just then, there's a lot of other AWS services that already have kind of reserved instances, savings plans, that kind of thing. So if you know your usage patterns for EC2, for instance, you can go and say, well, I'm going to commit to whatever a year, whatever 3 years, and AWS turn around and say, well, okay, you commit to that, we'll give you a reduced price. So it's good to see this come in general anywhere, but the fact that it's come to Redshift serverless, if you already know your usage patterns, this is a slam dunk. Basically, you can just instantly commit. As long as you've got the money there again, you can make a saving. So it's straight away benefit for you. And the thing for me, and I don't know, I'll put this out to you two in a sec. When I've seen Redshift Spectrum mentioned anecdotally, it's usually mentioned in terms of it's great for testing, it's great for QA, but I wouldn't go into production with it for whatever reason. It might just be that that's my little sphere influence, whatever. But the advice before now has been like test with it, but spin up a Redshift cluster if you want to go to production. And the idea was starting to see stuff like this come in, where you can raise a commitment where you know what your usage is going to be, starting to legitimize it as a production production resource, production use case. Because it used to, like when I first started, having a warehouse was kind of the dumb thing. So going back to almost 10 years now, you had a warehouse because of course you had a warehouse. Why wouldn't you have a warehouse? But now you've got stuff like an increase in AI, which is driving an interest in data in general. You've also got things like the lakehouse architecture coming up. You've got other ways of transforming and manipulating your data that don't necessarily need a warehouse. So stuff like this coming in, where you could use serverless for your ETL, you could do whatever you need to do with it, but you don't necessarily need it around full time. This is starting to prove to me, at least, that people are starting to use that pattern, that they're not necessarily having the warehouse and you ask them, well, okay, what's this doing for you? What benefits is your organization getting? And everyone looks at each other and goes, well, we were told by, we were told by whatever consultant 10 years ago, well, you've got to have a warehouse. And it's like the data space has moved on, the technology's improved. So warehouses still have a good use case. It's the same with data lakes. Like you have an absolute, you have situations where they're absolutely still the right choice even now, but there are choices besides a data warehouse if you're wanting to build things like a semantic model for your data store or for your web app or for your AI model, or you're wanting to merge together your data for stuff like QuickSight. You may not necessarily need the Redshift cluster that you would have done a few years ago. So I'm kind of interested if your viewpoints share with mine, like if you've seen Redshift serverless in production, or whether it's just kind of been this see what it's like and take it from there.
Well, it's not a Redshift issue as such, this whole use serverless in dev test and use traditional boxes in production. So I'm a serverless community builder, as I've said several times on this pod, but for new listeners, that's kind of my bag, right? And the argument I've heard again and again and again against using serverless in production is it's more expensive. And that can be true, actually. That can be true, especially when you don't have this kind of scale to zero facility that things that are serverless but aren't really talk about, minimum commitments and all this jazz. Well, then you're not serverless. I'm sorry, just go away. The reason being, of course, is your dev test workloads particularly with scale to zero, will be near zero most of the time, certainly compared to production. When you get to production, you're going to be orders of magnitude higher, and that your EC2 based solution or your RDS based solution or whatever will quite happily cope chugging along at 60-70% CPU used, and it won't care and it won't notice. But to get that level of resource and capacity for your serverless resources is going to be 2x the price, easy, right? Because it just will be, and there's no real downtime either. Or maybe there is, but it's for a few hours in the middle of the night because of the nature of the service, for argument's sake. So serverless ends up being significantly more expensive to run in production than it does out of production, just because of the usage, right? That as an aside, back on the kind of topic of the article, I like this very much. I do. Anything that gives you an option to spend less money is good. I do find it quite interesting. Okay, it's serverless reservation, so of course it's going to be reservations and not reserved instances and all that jazz, because this is going to be based on Redshift processing units rather than Dynamo capacity units or ALB compute units or what is it they do for compute savings plans? Managed units of compute, I think. No, that's just on price. That's on RDS, is managed units of compute, which is weird. So obviously it's just going to be that. What's interesting about this is there's only 2 payment options, because with your compute saving plans and your RIs, you've got 3. So you've got your 1 year and your 3 year terms, quite normal. And then for this, you've got nothing up front, which is 20% off, or everything up front, which is 24% off. And in every other kind of discount committed spend option, there's a split it down the middle where you pay half up front and you get a discount that's somewhere in the middle of that. You don't seem to have that option here. Maybe it'll come. Maybe the billing console and the APIs just aren't set up for that just yet. So maybe that'll come. But I thought that was quite interesting. What else is interesting, not specifically about this, but about reservations and capacity and kind of all the rest of it, just as a sort of a meta piece, is we're seeing savings plans being the sort of default now, because the newer instances of EC2s don't have RIs available anymore. You might notice if you go and look for like the R8s and the R9s or whatever the latest one is, you can't reserve them. They're all savings plans. So this is good. I like this. The whole serverless, don't use it in production thing, that's a completely separate argument, and I will wax lyrical about that until you're wrong 10 ways to breakfast, but that's neither here nor there. But I like this. This is good. I don't like it's fortunate I just passed my SA Pro, because I probably have to work out another red processing unit for the exam next.
So I'm renewing my developer associate later this week, and the Dynamo capacity just like flashing before you. 1 to 1 to 4, 1 to 2 to 4, 1 to 1 to 1. And I don't even I have to decode what that means in my head. But when you just put the numbers in front of me, yeah, that's fine. But I can't believe that's still in the exam. Sorry, we're just going way off tangent now. But it's like to manually, especially because it does it in the console.
You need to know how much does a read and a write capacity unit cost. Oh, crying out loud. Hang on, there's 4 kilobyte units, but
yeah, there's that. There's slider maths. Let's not forget that. That's it. Cider, cedar, whatever. But it's just why is it here? Anyway,
maybe it won't be. That's the thing. You don't never quite know till you sit the exam, do you? You might learn it all and it won't be in there at all.
Well, this is true. I'd hope that I don't have to go through a couple more years or decades and I just hear 1 to 1 to 1 once to immediately. What are you doing? Shut up. But it's what we do to ourselves to stay certified, isn't it?
Absolutely, or become certifiable, one or the other. Anyway, on that note, let's move along to our first AI-based article of the week. We got 2 articles in this week before we mentioned it, although Damien did briefly mention it, I think, in relation to the previous article. But this one is firmly in the generative AI space. And it's the announcement that prompt optimization in Amazon Bedrock is now generally available. So as the article said, it was launched back in November 2024 into preview. But now, as of the 23rd of April last week, prompt optimization is now generally available. So, John, thoughts on prompt optimization in Amazon Bedrock?
I probably should use this. I'm really bad at it. So we spoke about prompt optimization kind of, I don't know, it was 2, 3, 4 weeks ago now, kind of at a high level, because there was another article about it and kind of talking about what it is. And the short version is you can write your prompt in such a way as to get a decent result. But because Bedrock, by and large, unless you're using a custom model, charges you for tokens, which is effectively words, but it's words, parts of words, and sometimes they group them and punctuation and stuff counts as well. But basically, it's per word, effectively. You get charged effectively per word on the way in and on the way out, right? And okay, the prices are different. You pay less for each token on the way out than you do on the way in, but whatever. You basically pay for every word that you interact with the model. Cool. This is giving you a way to use as few words as possible to get the output that you want. That's great because I don't like talking to people. I don't want to talk to the machine either. Let's use as few words as possible to get that output. Wonderful. But, nihilism aside, this is good because it's a cost optimization tool, right? If you can use 100 words and you pay for your 100 tokens, okay, that kind of doesn't really matter because it's not a huge number of tokens. But if you're putting thousands, tens of thousands, millions of prompts, millions of tokens through your models that you're playing with, that's going to start costing you a lot of money. That's going to start costing you a lot of money. And if you can reduce that by a factor of a couple of percent at that kind of tier, that's brilliant because you can save yourself loads of money. I don't know how well it will work with optimizing the outputs because obviously all you're doing is optimizing the inputs. And one of the things that I've seen quite a lot, and maybe it's more from the chat applications, I suppose, than from Bedrock, but is give me a so-and-so that does such and such, and it will give you 2 or 3 lines of preamble. I don't want any of that. You've just charged me for that, and I don't want any of that. I just want the output I asked for, please. But again, maybe this can help you sort that out. I don't know. But prompt management is a thing. Prompt engineering is a discipline in and of itself that didn't exist at all 2 years ago, and now is a thing that everybody that uses these things need to care about. And Amazon telling you, here's a way that you can kind of spend less to get the outputs that you want. Brilliant. I don't think it's available for all models, and I don't think it's available in all regions, which is, again, one of my big bugbears about Bedrock generally is its massive inconsistency between models and between regions. But, that's storied at this point. But
it's available in quite a lot of regions. It's quite a lot of regions for AI launch. Certainly,
usually they're
certainly covering the
4.
globe. Yeah. It's definitely spanning the globe. Not in all regions, but definitely in regions spanning the globe. If you read the list there. So, yeah. Anyway, Damien, what are your thoughts on this?
So I do something similar with this if I'm producing a header image for the blog, something like that. I'll say, like, rather than say I want this, I'll say, what prompt would you write to produce this? And I'll write the prompts that I would write, and then AI, the whatever AI model I'm using will go away and it'll come back with this long, which obviously in that context I'm not being billed per token, so that's absolutely fine. And then you feed that modified enhanced prompt in, and you'll get a far better version than whatever nonsense I'd written in the first place. So for AWS to come out with something like this is going to be really helpful for people that kind of see the promise of AI and they don't know how to write an effective prompt, because this is one of the problems really that I think that needs to be solved. It's not a case of what can it do or what can anything like that. How do you instruct AI to do something without having to know all these little hacks and tell it what to do, tell it what not to do, tell it not to include preamble, tell it to be precise, don't forget to say please or not say please, and thank you. For you to just put your query in and then it understands. You don't need to know which model to go. You don't need to know how to phrase a prompt, how not to phrase a prompt, anything like that. I don't know much about how it optimizes. So one case I saw a while ago, someone asked it to write a Python script for an API call, and it came back and said, here are the places you would put your API keys in plain text in the file. So I don't know if part of the optimizer's job would be to say, do not compromise my security with this code or anything like that. But I definitely think it's the kind of thing that we need, because the better the prompts, the better the end result that comes out. And ultimately, the more your business, your customer, whatever, is going to get out of the AI experience, which is ultimately the point of all this.
Absolutely.
We have seen some weird things from various kind of talks and things that I've seen on how to get decent results. You use XML tags for some reason. That seems to get a really good result. And there's other weird stuff like that. But yeah, the point about security and putting your API keys in, that's the big danger of vibe coding. And hopefully this can help with that as a problem. And honestly, I say the word vibe coding, I throw up in my mouth a bit, but there we go.
But you are mentioning it more and more, John. I think you really secretly quite like it.
I use AI quite a lot, actually. I was really, previous listeners to the podcast, regular listeners, will know how bearish I was about this, right? I didn't like it. Didn't like it. And maybe that's the whole, it's changed, it's different, it's scary. But I use it quite a lot now, believe it or not. I sit there, I flip between ChatGPT and Perplexity and a couple of others. And I'm getting really, really good results out of them now for some of the stuff that I'm doing. And it's letting me go so much faster than I was before. It's ridiculous.
And you're even talking about it at the AWS Summit on Wednesday. So,
I mean, to be fair, that is a kind of bait and switch because I'm mostly talking about serverless.
with an AI sprinkling,
with an
of
AI kind of sprinkling, yeah. Look, let's get 2 buzz topics in there: serverless and AI, modern compute, and the whole thing. And maybe I'll get through some content filters.
I mean, part of that improvement will be that the AI models have improved. That's undeniable.
Yeah,
and part of it will be that you have learned to interact with it better.
I know my Google foo is pointless now.
Yeah. So, if the better that we can get at that, and the more, we throw like agile around everything, but the better instructions we can give to the models, the better results we can give, they can give back to us, and then we can hopefully keep moving forwards rather than just the constant slop and the unsecure stuff and everything. So I'm interested to see where this goes.
Absolutely. Well, it definitely seems like generative AI is here to stay, especially if John's using it more and more and even talking about it.
I might have to pay for a premium account. I really might, because it's good.
So on the basis that it is here to stay, our next article should also be
the benchmark
of interest.
for that.
Yeah. So on the basis that the generative AI is here to stay, our next article should also be of interest. This is an article from the AWS architecture blog, and the title is "Announcing the AWS Well-Architected Generative AI Lens." Well-architected, of course, is a set of architectural standards produced by AWS across 6 main pillars, which I probably can't remember them all off the top of my head, but reliability, cost, sustainability,
security, high availability. Yeah, you've done sustainability. We should know this. We're meant to be doing well-architected training.
Yeah. I've done the intro. I haven't done the deep dive yet, so maybe it'll get cemented in my brain when I've done the deep dive training. So the well-architected framework, as I said, is a set of design standards, but there are also a number of lenses which you can look at it through specific industry standards, sets of advice, and so on and so forth. But in this case, there's a new lens for generative AI where you can look at your generative AI through I'm just waffling now, aren't I? So I'm going to come to you first on this one, Damien. Tell us, are you a well-architected partner over at Steamhouse?
I believe so. We've got and I've been there about 10 months at this point, so but I am aware that all 3 principals have well-architected skills and badges and all the good stuff.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on this new well-architected generative AI lens?
So I was surprised that this didn't already exist. When I saw the link on your newsletter, I thought, well, we've had. I mean, there's 3 AI exams now, all tiers. Oh no, sorry, there's not a professional one, but there's a specialty one, the foundation one,
potato.
Yeah. So we've got loads of exams. We've got blogs flying all over the place, but we didn't actually have a way to start getting production uses out of AI, which just struck me as bizarre. That we wouldn't have I mean, I get that a well-architected lens, by extension, you'd need use cases, you'd need to figure out, you'd need to get the case together for what it would actually need. But I would have thought that would have come before the exams to say, I'm fully qualified in AI, or can you build anything with it? No. So it's great to see that it's here. It's the fact that it leans into the existing pillars means that it's not you're not having to build anything build any mental work from the ground up, so to speak. You can just pick up in the same way as any of the other lenses. Flicking through it, it's going to be something you can quickly apply to. So if you've got something already in the loop, or you're imminently going to start something, it's ready to go more or less out the box. I've got no notes other than that, really. It looks like it should have been there 6-12 months ago. And I'm happy to see it.
John?
Yeah, no additional notes really. It's you probably couldn't work Gen AI into a whole pillar in and of itself, because the framework is a lot more generic than that. It actually lists the pillars here. So we've got operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. And that last one is going to be quite key for any AI workloads, because as we all know, AI is horrendous for the environment. So that's going to be kind of pretty key, I would imagine. The lens is good. Generally, it kind of makes sense if you kind of skim read it. It talks about 6 phases, and that's scoping and model selection and customization with prompts, and then integrating applications, deploying, and iterating, as you'd expect, right? And then it also talks about responsible AI and data architecture as well, and those are cool, good things too. Surprised this hasn't come sooner, generally speaking, but I suppose we've gone from where are we in the hype cycle now? I think we're getting to the maturity point of the hype cycle, where we thought a year ago it might be 18 months ago, we thought it might be vaporware, and then it was everything needs to be AI, and then you saw Zoom putting AI avatars in there. I don't want that. No, I just want to talk to people on Zoom. I don't need that. And now we're kind of getting to the point of maturity. So I suppose that's why this is coming now.
Cool. What about the 4 focus areas of the generative AI lens? Design principles, well-architected framework pillars, cloud agnostic best practices, and related generative AI architecture considerations. Anything to comment on that?
It does kind of read like a who's who of the AI practitioner cert, doesn't it? But I think the thing to bear in mind was that this isn't exactly anything new. This was all here already, but it just wasn't consolidated anywhere. So I think having this in a situation where you can get teams in a room, you can actually start building things and use the document as your map, as your guide, really is the big win here for that.
Cool.
So it's a tricky one, because I haven't used it with something. I can only really go off the fact that everything's here that looks like it needs to be. But
I'll have more notes once I've done some of these. So I need to pass the training, and then we need to actually win some business to do some framework reviews with someone that wants to do an AI review.
Absolutely. Yeah. We learn through doing. So onward and upward. On that note, let's move along to our final article for this week, which is another way of learning. And that is through games. We do love a bit of games. Obviously, our next user group, we're going to be playing builder cards. Have you done builder cards yet, Damien? Either in your user group or just played builder cards in general?
So I've got 2 decks on the windowsill, and every time I think I'll have the time to sit down with them.
Mine,
so at some point.
Mine are at home gathering dust, not because they've been there for a long time, just because I generated a lot of dust with some DIY that I was doing last week. So I had to dust everything. But anyway, this article is not about builder cards. It's about another form of gamified learning that AWS announced last week. It's on the AWS training and certification blog. And this is all about the introduction of AWS SkillBuilder Trivia. So John, thoughts on SkillBuilder Trivia and whether we should be using this at a future user group, either in Sussex or in Lancashire?
I mean, I quite like that as a concept. We've done a number of quizzes through, I think we used Kahoot, but that was probably because we had an account anyway, and it was, well, we're paying for this anyway, let's just use it, because we had one for some internal thing that we did. So we kind of did that a few times. We've done 2 or 3 of them over the 8 or so user groups that we've done, right? And they always go down really well because people like them, because it's you sit there with your phone and it's all kind of interactive, and we did prizes for winners and all that kind of jazz. And that all went really, really well because people like that. It's particularly after you've sat there and listened to a tech talk for half an hour, 40 minutes. It's right, now let's get you engaged and let's do a thing, and then let's go and get drunk again afterwards. Cool. This is great in that regard because I don't have to write the quizzes anymore. Because I mean, the ones I've done, I did one that was, related to the talk because I got pre-starts of the talk, and I did a fun game of is it Amazon or AWS in the name, because no one can ever get that right. That's so much fun. Is it Amazon S3 or AWS S3 with Amazon S3? But is it, is it what is it? So that was always good fun. But this would save me from doing that. So I like that conceptually in terms of doing that at a user group. I don't think it's aimed at that because it's off the back of SkillBuilder, and SkillBuilder is all individual logins. So we might have to come up with a way of doing that if we want to use this. But it's great because it's pre-validated questions, or you can do your own content if you have specific learning objectives. And okay, it's competitive learning, which we like. It's gamified, which we like, rather than this. I think they put it in there as passive learning into active participation. Because whilst you and I, Carl, I don't know about yourself, Damien, we're a bit old-fashioned. The whole university lectures, I tend to do quite well with that as a way of absorbing content. Just because it works for me, but it doesn't for a lot of people. And this is quite good in that because it's giving yet another way for people to absorb some content. And this is also really good because it's free, right? And that's one of my bugbears around SkillBuilder is there's a free tier and then there's a paid tier, but almost all of it's in the paid tier. This is free, so that's good.
Anything to add, Damien?
So I like that it doesn't hinge on an exam. So I've seen lots of quizzes and, but they all tend to be like, you are studying for cloud practitioner, you are studying for DevOps professional, whatever. So the fact that this is just a bit of fun, that there is really no end goal, if you will, other than to see who's going to win it. So I said I went on Friday and had a bit of a play with it. So it reminds me very much of what Matthias uses for the recaps.
Absolutely,
Very much, even down to like the emotes and everything. So if you want to do a Matthias cosplay, then you're in luck.
Oh, that's a terrifying and brilliant concept. I'm doing that.
So coming next month, you just get a Matthias cardboard face that you can order through Amazon. But it goes back to something you said, John, that people learn in different ways, and the more ways you can give someone to have an opportunity to learn, the better for everyone, and the fact that it's free. So I can see this like if you've got, say, a team of people that are relatively new to AWS, or you've got a business moving to AWS, and you want to either tailor the quiz or just generally, just like I know it's been like you could have a day of learning and then say for the last hour or so we're going to have a bit of fun, rather than just you keep going at stuff. I'm going to ask you some of the things. Got these pre-approved questions, and we'll just see. The winner can get whatever. I will say some of the sample questions. One of them mentioned Cloud9, and one of them mentioned Sumerian. So these questions, like maybe I just like went click, 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 yeah, whatever. So yeah, some of the questions may be a little outdated. Then probably some.
I mean, that's the case with the exams, though. Generally, and I know this isn't tied to an exam, but that's the case with the exams as well, as they lag 3 to 6 months behind reality anyway.
So,
but you can pick and choose your own questions, I think. So
yeah. So I've gone and looked at it, which I probably should have done before we start recording. But there we go. At the free access tier, you can host trivia sessions using your 500 plus question catalog. Participants can join without a SkillBuilder account, but the host needs one. So that's good. That's exactly what we need for things like user groups and for quick checks and all that kind of jazz. And then if you want to go and pay for them, which is, again, it's tied to your SkillBuilder tier. So if you have an individual or team subscription access, you then get access to the question generator, which is AI powered, obviously. You can create and edit custom questions. You can bulk upload your questions, and you can host sessions, again, using the question catalog as well. So that's quite cool. I like this generally. I think we'll probably do this at a user group. Probably not the next one, though, because that's going to be much more interesting.
Well, with the question bank, you could very easily build your like monstrous and brilliant, may I say, AWS or Amazon quiz. The other stuff like, is it an AWS service or a Pokemon? That kind of
Amazon Bulbasaur. Well, hang on.
Well, there we have it. More gamified learning from AWS, potentially coming to a user group near you soon, if you happen to be in Lancashire or Sussex. But I'm sure we're not the only leaders who are looking at this. But on that note, we have reached the end of our time for Season 4, Episode 17, I think it was. It's been a while since I did the introduction, but we have reached the end of Season 4, Episode 17 of Logicast. So thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed it, please tell your friends. We are available to download from wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to see the funny faces we're pulling when we're talking to you, we're also available on the Logicata YouTube channel. So check us out and like and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you very much, Damien, for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's been great to have you on board as our guest. And thank you, as always, John, for turning up and doing your job. We'll be back next week with another episode of Logicast. In the meantime, see you again next time.